All right, everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be discussing Python. So we're going to just be covering some simple basics of Python. You were introduced to programming, what that is, different programming languages, and then we discussed that Python was one of the easiest ones to learn because it looks very much similar to English. So we will do a few weeks in that to just let you see what programming languages are like. And then from there, of course, if you are interested in learning more Python, then there's a Python playlist on my channel that you can check out in full details of different things that I briefly cover in this video. But before we get deep into that, let's go ahead and jump in. So, when you are doing Python coding, again, most times a lot of programmers will use Visual Studio Code, so that is what you see on my screen. Now, in the case that you do not have Visual Studio Code, there are other places you can go to code in Python. So I will show you those. So here is one. One would be Google Colab, and Google Colab is free, and I would be recommending this to all of you who do not have um, Visual Studio Code downloaded. So when you type in Google Colab right here, that's how you spell it, and you would click on the link. So when you click on this link, it pretty much will allow you to link like your Google Drive. So if you have a Gmail account, which most people do, then you can link them. So for example, we'll go ahead and say we want to start a new notebook, and that's how you would get it up. So it says you need to log in with a Google account, of course. So you do continue. Let me slide this over here and I'll sign in. But Google Colab is a place where you can go and it will pretty much store your information. So that way, if you, let's say, close it out and come back, that it should still be there. So that is the good part about it. So if you do have Visual Studio Code, I would say and recommend use Visual Studio Code. But if you do not, I would say definitely use Google Colab as your next resort, just so you can get your information saved properly and nothing happens to it. So that is one of the pluses of Google Colab. All right, so next we are going to come here, slide this over, and these are just some release notes. We'll get rid of that. So this is an example of Visual Studio, or not Visual Studio, of Google Colab once you open it. So this is a notebook. In my case, I have it zoomed in just so it's easier to read what's being typed. So generically, by default, it would not look like this on your end, but I've used it before, so that's why it's set this big. But this is a place you can come to write your code. And for example, um, as soon as you type something, of course, this is not correct, but that little play button is where you would run the code as well as here. So those are the two ways you can run your code here. Along with Google Colab, if you simply type in Python online IDE, then it will give you pretty much a array of different choices that you can use. Now, there is a way to use Python within your actual command terminal, or your command prompt or your terminal if you're on Mac, and that would be by installing the actual Python software from python.org here. And once you install it, then you can use it in your terminal as well. It just makes it a little bit more complicated to save things. But for this purpose, if I had to recommend three choices, number one, Visual Studio, number two, Google Colab, because they will let you download the file. So use one of those. Now, if you're using Google Colab, I definitely want you to know how to download it. So when you click File, you see it has Save a Copy in your drive, so you can do that, or you can do Download. So download.py is what you would want to do. Or you can download the notebook. This one is a notebook format. This one is the Python file. So those are the two ways you can do it. And as well as here, if you click here, then you can change the name. So example, come in here, and then you can do Python demo, enter. And then that will then save your new notebook as that. So that is how you use Google Colab. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. For this case, again, you can use both. But for this one demo, I will use Google Colab. So getting started in Python, the first thing we are going to do is comments. So comments are created by using the hashtag. And when you see it's green, that's basically saying it is a comment. Now, basically what comes after the comment is any notes that you want to put that will tell you what your code is doing. So in our case, what we're going to do is we'll say this is a comment, and then that way you know that's what a comment is. So for example, if we go and run this, nothing is going to happen because there is nothing for it to run, basically. A comment gets ignored. So when it runs, your computer basically does not see it. It's like it's invisible. So it will not actually print out what you type. So however, we'll do here a print statement. And then that is how you would print stuff out. So you see here we have print, and that is a print function. So when you see those parentheses after a word, that means it is a function. So in this case, whatever the name is in front of the parentheses is the function name. And in this case, it is print. So this is a print function. Some people say print statement because they use it a lot. So it's really called the print function because basically a function is something that has a bunch of code in the background to allow you to continuously run it. So this is a built-in function on Python, meaning Python itself, when they created it, they wrote this function in the background. You just do not see it, but you can use it without having to worry about how it's done. And there are ways you can create your own functions, but this is just a built-in one. So how do you use print? Basically, what you're going to do is you will use a string inside of a print statement or simply a number. In this case, I did not touch the strings yet, so in this case, we'll just put a number. So we'll put 4. So if you click run, now you see it printed the number 4. Again, it can be used as a calculator. So if you say print, and we'll say 10 plus 4, and hit run, then you see it does 14. So it can do pretty much any calculating that you want. So that is a good thing about print. But generally, print many times comes with text. So that's what we will get into now. So that would be called your strings. And strings are text. All right. So if we were to do the print statement, or actually let's go back. So I'll add another note and we'll say use this or this. So to use a string, you have to put it in quotes. So for example, if we do print statement and you do quotes and you would say hi. That is an example of a string, and we are saying we want to print out that string hi. Again, we can use the double quotes and we'll do hello. So these are two forms of strings, hi and hello. One uses single quotes, one uses double quotes. They both do the same thing. Generally, most people will use double quotes. It just adds a little bit more cushion around the text visually, but it's totally up to your preference. But basically what this will do is to print out hi and hello. But it will also print out these two values as well because we are all in the same code box. So here you see it says 4, 14, hi, and hello. So here we are printing strings. So strings are your text. So another way you could do it is what we call concatenation. And what that means is printing two strings together. So you would use the plus. So for example, print, and we'll say hi plus hello. And then when we run that, you should see that it printed them together. Now it does not add a space, so keep that in mind. Concatenation literally just means it's going to put them directly next to each other. Now, if you want to have space, you would have to add space. So for example, I'll copy this and show you how we would do it here. So I'm going to copy it and I'll paste that here. So option 1 for spacing would be to either come here at the end of one string and add a space, or you can add a space here as well. So either or, so I'll just delete this one. So now when we run it, you see there is a space between the two strings. Now the other way you can do it is simply by adding another space between the two. So we'll say hi, and that would be doing this. So that can be a space plus hello. So this one took a little bit more work to do, but we'll still reach the same result. So now if we click run, you see we have met the same result, just two different ways of doing it. So that is how you can add some strings together. Another way you could do it is this. So if you said print, and you would say hi, and then hello, print, then you see here, it automatically added the space when we use a comma. So comma will also add them together. So we'll add a comment for that. With space. All right. So that is the ways you can print out your strings. So pretty simple printing numbers and printing strings. Now, in this case, I'm going to start another code box. So in Google Colab, you can separate your code box. So let's say, we don't want to see this output for the rest of the time we're coding. All you had to do is either click this plus code, or if you hover right here, is a plus code here, and it accesses another box of code that you can write, and then it would separate it from the top. So we don't continue to see a mix of information, we'll go ahead and start this. So what we'll do now is working with strings and variables. All right. So step 1 is doing the variables. So we'll create the variables, and variables pretty much store your data. So for example, if we wanted to store a greeting, so we'll say greet equals, and then we'll put hi. So this would create a greeting variable, or a variable called greet, and you see when I hover it, that's what it says. It's a variable, it's named greet, and it's holding the value of hi. So then if we want to use this later on, we can use this. So we'll put name, and we'll just put Evan, and then let's put a grade equals, let's put 8. So we'll use variables to store any data. So numbers, your floats, your decimal, and your float would be like, for example, test grade equals 98.5, right? So now, if we hover this, you see it's a variable. It says it's a float. A float is determined by your decimal. So if you use a decimal in the number, that is what they consider a float. If you just use a singular number, that would be a whole number. So it would just be considered, a normal integer. And then here, of course, is just two strings. So we'll say here, integer. This is a float, and obviously these two are strings. So now that we have these different variables, we are going to use the variables in a print statement. All right, so first things first, you can simply say print, of course, and then do your parentheses. You have to have the open and close for it to work. And the first thing you could do is the greet, because that's what we wanted. So we want to say greet. So if we do greet, our response would be hi. Now we want to combine the rest of these variables within the same print statement. So first we can try greet, comma, name, because we have a variable called name, and then you see it says hi Evan. Now, in this case, there's no way to make the print statement make sense if we just add an 8 next to it, so we need to add some text, which you can do within a print statement via the way we did it above by placing it within the print function. So we are going to add some quotes to add some text, and we will say, we could say period because, prior to this, we don't have a period. So we'll say period, welcome to, and we'll add our space, or actually we don't have to. Let's do a comma, and then we can do grade. And to make it easier, instead of doing 8th grade, we'll say welcome to grade 8. So then I will remove this, and we'll run that. And now you see it says, hi, Evan, welcome to grade 8. So you can combine in a print function various variable names as well as strings to help you print out whatever statement you're trying to do. And we want to finish this out, so we do have one variable left. So we could say here, we could end it there, right? And we'll come down here and say print. We'll say name, so you can reuse it. So we're going to say name, which will be Evan. We'll add a string. You got a, let's do comma. We'll do test grade. And then on a quiz. And we'll go ahead and run that. And then there you go. So then it will say it right there, everything we put in there. So I do want to reverse a little bit, go back to our variables. If you notice here, all of our variable names start with a letter. So you do have to start your variable names with letters. If you are to use a number, another case you could do, for example, is if you just want to use some numbers, you could say N1 equals 10 or num1 equals 10. And typically when you are creating your variable names, you want to name it based off of what that variable is holding, so it's easier for you to remember. So if you see here, I have greet as hi, because Hi is a greeting. So that will help me remember that it's hi. Name, I know Evan is the name. So I named it name for Evan. Same with grade, same with test grade. Now, technically, could you create a variable with just a letter? Yes. You could do t equals 89, and then that would create a variable. However, if you were to use it later on, if I needed to use 89 later on, would I remember that it's the variable t? Probably not. So that is why you always want to make sure that you do name your variables with something you can remember. You can combine, if you see here, we have N1 and num1. You can combine letters and numbers to create a variable, and you can use a underscore. So I typically use underscores when I have a variable that I want to name specifics. So in here, test grade is 2 separate words. So I use a underscore to add a space. So you cannot create a variable with a space between it. That is not allowed. So if you were to do this, that causes an error. So you see that little line. When you see that, that means you basically created an error. And if you hovered it, you see it's confused and it's saying test is not defined and statements must be separated by new lines. So with this, this part is thinking we're referring to the grade 8 integer from up here. Because when you reuse it, it's always going to connect this with the number 8. So that is why you have to keep in mind about how you're naming it. And then if you were to do it here, right, I put test grade again. Up there, it is 98.5. But if you are to name something the same thing, for example, here, if I put 60.7 and I run it, then it's going to give him the value of 60.7. So although we have test grade here, we reused it here, and when you reuse it and say equal, you're basically reassigning the value. So that is why you never want to have the same variable twice unless you are intentionally trying to change the value after some point. So for the most part, you just want to make sure that you're naming all your variables uniquely and that you're using them correctly. So far, this is a basic intro into, Python. We covered the main important parts for you to start getting started and just experiment with print statements. Python, it does get very intense and it is a whole course in itself, but being that this is introductory just to allow you to see how programming languages work, this is just a quick basic intro to that. There will be another video that goes into detail that I will use again from my channel where I have more details. But in this case, this is just a starter to get you started to see different ways that you can find ways to explore Python. So again, Visual Studio Code through a online Python EDE or Google Colab. So this is just a way for you to get started. So hopefully this made sense. And in the next video, we will get a little bit deeper into Python and looking at how to work with your strings more. So I'll see you in the next video.